most awesome way you've escaped from an embarrassing, potentially damaging moment? Story 1, not so much escaping embarrassment, but my brother-in-law's grandmother lives alone in Caracas, which is an extremely dangerous city. One day, she was walking on her own down an alley, and she noticed she was being followed by a group of men who were about to mug her. She turns around and yells, "Hijo," which means son, basically an old lady-esque way of acting, as if she knew him, and hugs one of the guys. She then started telling him had grown so much and looked very good. Asked him to please tell his mother she had said hi, and promptly said she was on her way home and dismissed herself. The group of men were so confused that they just left her alone. Story 2, I met this girl, and we really hit it off, but for the life of me, I couldn't remember her name. When I asked for her number, I said so. Should I just put you down as beautiful? She laughed and said, no, silly Sarah is fine. Story 3. So I woke up in the middle of the night from a vivid dream and wasn't sure where I was. I could barely make out my surroundings, but I knew that I wasn't in my own bed. My head hurt and my mouth was dry. I had definitely been drinking. I was lying on my side with my arm around somebody who had her back to me. It started to come back to me. I was at a party last night at my girlfriend's house, and we were in her bed. No problem. Even better, I had pushed my hand inside her bra and was cupping her. Great. Then an arm came around me from behind, and I didn't know who it was. I couldn't turn to see and had to rack my brain to try to recall the events of the night. I remembered that her best friend was very drunk, and we put her to bed. My girlfriend's bed. That's fine. She's just asleep and put her arm around me. Wait a minute. Weren't they on the opposite sides of the bed? So there I was in bed, cupping my girlfriend's best friends while my girlfriend was cuddling me. Her bra was really tight, and every time I tried to pull my hand out, she would start murmuring in her sleep and fidgeting as though she might wake up, which made my girlfriend do the same. I thought maybe she'll wake up and ill explain, and we'll all have a laugh about it. I thought this quite ambitiously before realizing that she was more likely to wake up screaming because she wouldn't know who was groping her, and I'd be labeled as a pervert of some sort. So I did the only thing that I could think of. I slowly got the arm that I was lying on free. Seriously, slowly. It took about 10 minutes. I could only use this arm from the elbow and managed to lightly grab my girlfriend's arm. I guided her arm so that her hand was on top of my hand, which was on her friend's. I started imitating the breathing of my girlfriend to get a realistic sleeping rhythm and yanked my hand out just as I started snoring. I kept my eyes open just enough to see without being caught and saw the two of them awake as soon as I did it. The friend looked down at her and saw my girlfriend's hand there, and my girlfriend also looked at her misplaced hand. She said sorry. The friend said not to worry, and I snored away while smiling like a madman on the inside. Just after high school, when I was still pretty flat-chested and didn't have much in the way of curves, I was wandering the mall like you do. I'm suddenly hit with the overwhelming urge to use the restroom. This particular mall only had restrooms at either end, and I was in the middle. By the time I make it to the end of the mall, I was too preoccupied with not soiling myself and mistakenly walked into the men's room. Didn't realize this until I saw the urinals on the wall, but the place was empty and I had to go. So after I relieved myself and I'm walking out, a man walks in, stops and stares. Hey, you're a girl, he blurts. The surgery's not for another 6 months, but thanks, honey, I said, winking at him, sauntered out of there like a boss, and immediately left the mall in case he called security, edit grammar, formatting, etc. Story 4, on my first day of track practice in 8th grade. It was raining, so we were doing laps inside the school. It was paid out like a rectangle on one lap. There were 3 girls walking side by side through the hallway. I tried to go between one of them and the wall. I tripped. She probably tripped me, so I tried a somersault. Somehow, I actually pulled it off, and once I was back on my feet, I kept running, never even stopped moving. Story 5, this actually happened a few weeks ago. I was at a bar talking to these 2 girls I know. Next to them was this huge guy who had previously been talking to them nonstop about how great he was, etc., blah, blah. The girls are telling me while he was standing next to them, talking to some other girl out of earshot, that someone should stick a blow dart in him. I made a gesture in his direction of shooting a blow dart fist up to mouth, blowing. When I did that, he turned and saw me. He said, "Oh, what? I'm annoying you and everyone here, and you're shooting a blow dart at me." I looked at him puzzled and said, "What are you talking about?" I'm trying to get the bartender's attention so I can order a beer. At that point, I did the gesture again to the bartender, and she said, "Here you go," and gave me a beer. The guy said, "Dude, I'm so sorry. I thought you were making fun of me." Next one is won me. Situation diverted. Extra beer gained. Story 6, when I was about 12, I had a Diamondback bicycle that I would ride to school daily. One day after school got out, and I was walking back to my bike, I realized that I had lost my bike lock key. As I was nearing the bike racks, I see a particular group of boys walk with MY bike. They had been eyeing it for a while, and I just walked up to them, took my bike, and said, "Oh, hey, thanks for getting this out for me. I lost my key, so I was really worried I wouldn't be able to get it unlocked. Thanks," and rode off. They didn't chase after me or anything. They were so surprised. Story 7. 5 years ago, I was on the way to a psytrance party with my buddy, who was driving. At that time, I took a lot of drugs and had a little bag with me, which contained a whole galaxy of multicolored uppers, downers, screamers, laughers. You know the story. As we were driving, we see the cops behind us, and am thinking, all right, they're going to pull us over, hide the stuff. I didn't want to hide it in the car, or else my buddy would be blamed for it. So I put the stuff in my hood, and of course we got pulled over. The cop told me to step out of the car, and it needed to be mentioned that I was a bearded guy with dreadlocks, dressed up in the most ridiculous psytrance outfit you can imagine. He told me to empty my pockets on the seats, and I was shoveling tons and tons of different psytrance flyers out of my pockets. As I unloaded my precious treasury of flyer collection, his dirty little smirk got bigger and bigger. He starts searching every pocket I have. Let me take off my shoes and looked into my stinking socks. He stopped, frustrated and a bit angry. Tells me that I'm lucky this time, and let me go now. We stepped back into the car and parked it somewhere near the party. I'm really on adrenaline now. And as we were walking down the road, suddenly a car stops beside us. Two guys get out the car. Good evening, gentlemen. Police, can we see your ID, please? I started laughing and told them that their friends just checked us and described the other police officers in their car. They instantly got cool, asked us where we were heading. After telling him we were on the way to a party, the officer told us to jump in. He's going to drive us. It's a long way to walk there. So we got in, and while driving, the cop tells us to stay quiet. He's going to pull a prank on his buddy. After driving a couple of minutes, his car stops beside the other cop, which pulled us over earlier. The driver pulls down his window and asks, did you just check those two guys? He looks into the car, locks my eyes, and says, yes. Did you check them carefully? Yes. Did you look in their underwear? No. Well, you should have. I just found a huge chunk of hash in this guy's shorts. I see the anger in the cop's eyes, and we drive away. The cops in the front seats are laughing their asses off, whereas I'm dying a thousand deaths in the back seat. Finally, we arrive at the party. We get out of the car, and the cops wish us a good night and drive into the night. Story 8. I was on my daily jog one day, and halfway through I thought I felt a cramp. I actually had to take the most massive in my life. It got worse the faster I went, and I was about 5 miles away from my house, so I power walked the rest of the way home. I am literally now like 100 yards from my house. It's at the top of the hill if I just turned right, but I could not hold it anymore. My completely erupted as I jumped over the guardrail to hide in the swamp next to my house. At this point, I just shat myself like never before, and am on the verge of tears as I realize I'm going to have to walk all the way up that hill in front of all my neighbors. Then I spotted a huge mud puddle not too far away. It was my only option. I wallowed in the puddle for a few seconds and walked up my hill looking like a swamp monster, but not a swamp monster who has pants. Story 9. I was about to be mugged in a crowded street. Two guys closed on me and threatened me with a supposedly hidden pipe they had on a backpack. I just kept walking straight. They told me to go into the dark alley. I just kept walking straight. They threatened me repeatedly. I kept walking straight. I started talking to them and told them I had no money and that I was walking to a scout meeting, which was like 15 blocks away. I actually had money. We reach a corner and a cop was standing there. The guys flee, but at the end, one of them actually gave me cash for the bus because he thought it was a long way to walk. Story 10. In a department meeting, I was getting the nods. Room was warm, no coffee beforehand. 5 of the people who could give a ditty while my manager was droning on about. I'm leaning back in my chair, actually feeling my face tip forward. My boss yells, DRP, stay with us, and throws some wadded up paper at me. I wake up with a jolt and blurt, dog ate my homework. That was seriously a reflex. Everyone laughs with me, I think. Story 11. Back in 2006, I had to take a drug test for a job. Being a user of the chronic, I've always faked my drug tests by buying clean urine for Privacy Procom. It comes in a little catheter bag that you duct tape to your chest along with a warming bandage to keep the liquid gold at body temperature. You run the catheter down your pants and into your underwear. A tiny valve at the end releases the pee into the drug tester's cup. I had 2 weeks to complete this test. It's April, so I decided to take it on 420 just to be a smartass. So I'm at this nasty little drug test clinic in a strip mall, fake, warm urine in place. The woman running, it is a bizarre throwback to the 50s, looking like a schoolmarm and obviously excited to have me there, as if I was the only customer she had that day, which was highly possible. As I'm filling out the paperwork, I notice a memo posted on the counter saying they're going to lift up my pant legs and my shirt at the waist. Lifting my shirt at the waist would expose the catheter and all will be lost. I begin to panic. What to do? I try to stay calm and think if I can pull the catheter out of my pants and wad it up behind the bag on my chest, I can still pull it out once I'm in the bathroom giving the sample. So I pretend I've lost my cell phone. I start going through all my pockets and fake panic, which of course is easy at this point because I really am panicking. The schoolmarm asks what's wrong, and I tell her in a desperate voice I've lost my cell phone, and I'm expecting a very important call from my employer. I must now go to my car to try and find it. I run out the door, into my car where I begin to search for my lost cell phone. The school marm is freaking out too. She probably thinks her only customer for the day is going to drive off, so she stands at my car door, too close for me to mess with my fate rig. I give up and go back into the clinic. Now, the jig is up. I'm going to get caught, fail the test, and continue being unemployed. Then the clinic phone rings. She picks it up and starts talking. I realize that I have nothing to lose. It's time for the Hail Mary pass. I pretend to panic about my phone again and run out the door again. This time, she stands at the clinic door watching me search my car, which fortunately I had parked about 60 feet away. I get down really low, pretending to dig at the floorboard for the phone as I reach into my shirt, pull up the catheter, wad it up, and insert it behind the urine bag on my chest. Then I finally find my phone, express relief, go inside the clinic, and go ahead with the drug test. Despite this weird woman putting her ear against the door as I pretend to pee, I whip out the catheter, fill the cup, and wad the catheter back up and stick it back under the bag on my chest. With this weirdo pounding on the door because I'm taking too long, I quickly open the door and hand her the cup. We go into another room, and she takes the pee's temperature, which is fine, and then asks me to lift my shirt. I lift it all the way to the bottom of the bag. Then she has me lift my pant legs a few inches. She says, "You know why I have you do that, don't you? I know this means I'm good to go." She trusts me enough to explain what they're looking for. Relief, I act all confused and say vials, as if I can't even imagine how someone would fake a drug test. She nods and tells me I can go. I give my car a drive. Near having a nervous breakdown on the way home, I started the new job about 4 weeks later. That was 5 years ago, and I still have the job. TLDR, I faked a drug test and near got caught. Not really an embarrassing situation, but I was walking out of a Costco with something like 8 televisions and mounts of various large sizes. I noticed a family with 3 young children staring at me and quipped, "I'm building a fort." Immediately, the children asked their parents if they, too, could build a fort out of TVs. Story 12, by saying amusing and unusual or otherwise silly things all the time, I become impervious to failure, despite not being that good at real life. People just assume I'm joking if I ever say anything blatantly incorrect. It's kind of unnerving sometimes. Story 13, I have a couple ones from school. They'll post the other one if this one gets any interest. So, first off, multimedia and animation class with Mr. D. Mr. D was an old not suited to teach anything, let alone anything with computers. He had no hair and a white beard that billowed dandruff onto the summit of the massive beard, gut bulging in his polo shirt, and across his keyboard. I had no idea this was possible before I met him. He was ex-military and would brag about how much he used to be able to bench. Every day, I would go into class fairly early, and he, thinking me to be a fine young Texan boy, this took place in San Antonio, and would ramble aimlessly at me with the most potent old man coffee breath you can imagine about the terrorist Osama bin Laden, who was running for president. Needless to say, I thought this man was an asshat. So one day, he's lecturing the class about how clueless we 90 of the class were. We couldn't use the simplest computer, and so on and so forth. He finally blurts out, "Sometimes I think you are just plain stupid," absent-minded knee-jerk reaction from this cool kid writing the post. Without missing a beat, "You're stupid." The class all turns and looks at me with a, "Holy, are you serious?" face. I think fast, and as he's turned to scream at me, punch the kid next to me in the shoulder and say, "You need to export the file before you can put it in a movie maker." Stupid. Mr. D just says, "See, this is the kind of thing I am talking about," and goes back to lecturing. TLDR turned a thoughtless insult at a teacher into a corrective discipline meant for a fellow student. Story 14, I was attending a funeral for a family member of my wife's. At one point, I was cornered by my wife's aunt and her 2 sisters, all at least 20 years my senior. I don't recall how the conversation went up until then, but at one point I was asked, "Which one of us would you say is the oldest?" To which I replied, "Obviously, I am." Story 15, I once reminisced with my wife about a time and place in the mistaken belief that it was a shared experience. When she said I assumed that was with one of your ex-GFS, I remembered a quote from TV and said, "I'm sorry, I just assumed all my happy memories were with you." Story 16 was working a call center that sold electronics to credit card reward points users. I was in the middle of talking up a Panasonic Lumix camera to a lady on the phone when I accidentally let slip a "good camera" I was in the middle of saying, to my horror, but saved it by turning it into if I could tell you about. When I got off that call, after selling the camera, the dude next to me cracked up and said pro save. Story 17, once when I was doing something not legal, which involved using a fake ID, they asked for a second form of identification. I told them I only had my ATM card, which doesn't have my name. They said that would be okay, so they wrote down the number for my ATM card, so I was kind of screwed because they could then use that number to find me. When the guy turned his back, though, I took the form where he wrote my card down, and turn 1 to 7s he wrote into an 8, so he no longer had my real number. Story 18, nobody is going to read this, but what the hey, when I was in Sweden a few years back, me and some friends were going party crashing. Mostly we just found a house with a party inside, rang the bell, and asked politely if we could join in. Holding a few bottles of wine or beer didn't hurt. One night we got into a really dodgy party. I'm used to seeing we'd go around, heck, even some coke, but these guys were serious users. My friend, let's call her Lisa, gives me the get me the out of here look while talking to dude that make Hell's Angels look like choir boys. I promptly head on over and say, hey Lisa, it's about time we get home. Honey, bad move it seems. Dude gives me the stink eye something fierce, but I don't really care as we're leaving. I was the last one out of the door before somebody takes a hold of my collar and pulls me backward. When I turn my head, I see a flurry of brown. It was a beer bottle, smacked me right between the eyes. Luckily, the dude was too up to do a proper swing. So there I am, on the floor. Biker dude is hankering to gut me. Suddenly he yelps, then stands still. My other friend, let's call him Tom, was kneeling behind him with a firm grip on his. Me and Tom served together, so we basically followed SOP from that moment on. Tom punched him in the back of the knee, and I grounded the... We did a quick pat down and found a gun in his waistline. Tom took it and said in a classical action hero voice, he'll take that. Thank you. I was told most of this afterwards. I don't really remember much after he took that bottle to my head. Funny thing is that a gun in Scandinavia is expensive, even black market ones. So that little spout of stupidity that he pulled cost him quite a penny. TLDR biker dude throws a sucker punch. Army buddy saves my hide. Takes away biker dude's gun. Story 19. This will probably get buried at this point. But here we go. I have this weird involuntary hiccup thing. It's almost like a cross between a hiccup and a burp. It's calmed down significantly, but back in freshman year of college, it happened decently often and was often quite loud and sounded like a pterodactyl screeching. So there I am in class, in a large lecture hall, and my handful of friends and I are the only people sitting beyond the first half dozen rows. We're about halfway up the room, and absolutely no one was behind us. Suddenly, I produce a very loud and obnoxious screech. Everyone in the class looks back at my group. Everyone in my group, all of whom are aware of my affliction, look at me and laugh. I sit there surprised for what felt like 30 seconds and did the only thing I could think of. I turn around and look over my own shoulder, totally fooled everyone. Story 20, I was on my way home in a dangerous district in Riga when I had the brilliant idea to take a photo of an old building in a dark side alley. Backpack full of expensive camera, laptop, some money, and all other important traveling stuff. That's when this aggressive, probably high on coke guy in gym pants came up to me, positioned himself in front of me, snorted, and asked for some money. Gingy, it was a dangerous situation, and we both knew. Now you have to know that my host in Riga explained to me just a couple of hours before that there is this game, some brutes play with people, ask for a cigarette, then ask for money, then beat the out of them and steal all their stuff. So I got pretty nervous when this guy made clear that he and I want to be BFFs. I needed more time to think. So I played dumb. I don't understand you, but you can have a cigarette. He took my whole pack and put it away. We both knew this is level 2 of this game. He took my pack, and I'm in danger. That's when he started asking for money again. But this time really agitated, almost shouting Gingy, Moni, feverishly doing this money symbol with middle finger and thumb. That's when it struck me. I felt invincible and showed a huge smile. I clapped my forehead, said laughing, now I get it. Did the money symbol with my fingers and took out my lighter. You need a lighter. The astonishment in his face was impossible to miss. Tonight he picked the dumbest victim of them all. He took my lighter, lit a cigarette, and put the lighter in his pocket. Another act of aggression. Okay, game's over. He'll beat me up now, no matter what I do. That's when it struck me the third time. I gestured towards his trousers and told him to give me back my lighter. And he did, without thinking, but that's when it struck him I lost. The dangerous thug, was fooled by a dumb tourist. I swear I saw in his eyes I lost. Well, and then I ran towards the nearest police station and waited a bit, shaking, edit fix typo to make me sound less Russian. Story 21, I bought my best friend the wine rack for her 21st birthday. It's a bra with inserts that hold 750 milliliters of liquid. Plus it works like a water bra, so it gives you big tatassier. We were at a big concert at our university that everyone always sneaks alcohol into. She had vodka in the bra, and a security guard pulled her aside because she noticed the tube that comes out of the side for you to drink out of and for you to blow up the bra once it's empty. The security guard started following the tube and demanded she explain what it was when my boyfriend at the time yelled she has diabetes. The security guard immediately apologized and sent us on our merry way. Apologies to those with diabetes. My best friend growing up was diabetic, so it immediately popped into his head. Story 22, I was walking in the park once. Some dog owner left their dogs on the walkway. I stepped in it as I walked, and my foot slipped forward. Being the nimble person I am, I went into a deep lunge, popped up, and continued on my way, thinking to myself, fall with grace, rise with dignity. Now, I live by that little slogan created because of Dog's hit, Edit Nibble. Nimble thanks beauty nerds. Story 23, I don't think anyone is going to read this, but I'll put it down. It's about 1 a.m. I'm laying in bed, a bit drunk from a night with friends. It's a warm spring night. Windows are open, but it's too warm in the house to close the windows, and my parents didn't want to turn the air conditioner on if it wasn't completely necessary. Anyway, I can't sleep because my neighbor's wind chimes are clanging around. These things have kept me awake many nights, and I was really starting to get fed up. I also happened to know that they were on vacation that week. Since I was a bit drunk and completely annoyed that I couldn't sleep, I finally said it. Oh, and it was raining. So, it wasn't the best night to go on a mission, but I had a short window to take care of business. I got dressed, put a raincoat on and off around the block to get around the front of my neighbor's house, where it would be easy to get into their backyard. The back of their house faced the back of our house. I reach over their fence and am able to unlatch their gate. I slide into their backyard and find the tree with the wind chimes hanging from them. I start pulling on the string that the wind chimes are hanging from, trying to break the wind chimes free. No luck. I'm pulling like as hard as I could trying to break the string. Nothing. I keep at it, trying to rub the string on the tree really hard and fast. I try biting the string. Nothing is working. Suddenly, I realize I had a lighter in my pocket. I grab the lighter, spark it up, and burn the Hercules string in a few seconds, setting the wind chimes free. I head for the gate. The wind chimes are making a bit of noise, but I'm trying to keep them fairly quiet. I get through the gate and close it quietly. Just then, the neighbor that lives beside them pulls into his driveway. His headlights shine directly on me. I'm busted. I'm caught red-handed for a moment. I hope that he didn't notice me. But this huge guy jumps out of his car and says, "Hey, what the do you think you're doing?" as he runs around the car to the side I'm on. I'm frozen, completely frozen. I had no idea what to do or what to say. I straight up told him the truth with a quiver in my voice. I said, "I am getting rid of these wind chimes. I can't sleep with these things banging all night." I bit my lip as the guy reached in his pocket. He pulled out his cell phone. I knew he was going to call the cops, but then he put his cell phone in his other pocket and he reached back in and pulled out his wallet. He opened his wallet and took out a 20 bill. He handed me the money and said, "I hate those things. Take those wind chimes as far away from here as you can go. Get the out of here." I ran like the wind. I ran like the wind that plays these chimes against my will to sleep. The chimes banged harder than I had ever heard them bang before, but this time I loved it. Between the adrenaline, the fear, the freedom, and the victory, I felt an energy, a sensation, a buzz that I'm sure I will never capture again. It was elation mixed with butterflies in my stomach, mixed with a lot of vodka and a couple of beers. I slept well that night. I slept well that year. You can escape from embarrassing and/or potentially damaging moments. God, I've been doing it wrong my whole life. Story 24, being an idiot. I agreed to drive this big-breasted dick tease 3 hours away to art school in Central Jersey. She had strongly hinted that roadhead, or at least a road hand job, might be part of the deal, but that never materialized. Instead, she hooked me up with a bottle of cheap Adderall. I ate about 60 milligrams over the course of the trip, snorted 10 to 20 milligrams, and was flying so high that I didn't really care about the bait and switch. We got to her school without incident, except for a near head-on collision with the point of one of those concrete construction barriers they use to divide lanes of traffic. I drop her off, say goodbye, and hop back in my car. It's probably only about 12 a.m. or so at this point, and being an idiot tweaky McTweakerson mode, I figure he'll just drive back the same night. I pull out of the school and onto a wide, well-lit secondary road. Drivers on amphetamine tend to overestimate their driving ability, not surprisingly. But I think I was actually maintaining pretty well, until up ahead, I see a car pulled over with 2 police cars behind it, both with lights flashing. The road is wide, but only 2 lanes with big shoulders. And if I stay in my lane, I'm going to have to pass uncomfortably close to the cop cars, close enough, in my alter mind anyway, to potentially clip a door or officer walking up to a window. About 50 feet before the cop cars, I merge over to the left, so I'm sort of straddling the center line. The road was deserted and straight and all, so it wasn't like there was any oncoming traffic to worry about. And I actually was patting myself on the back for being so cautious and responsible when I saw one of the cop cars peel out of my rearview mirror. There was enough distance between us at that point that I could plausibly deny that I realized I was being pulled over. So I hit the gas for a bit and then turned off the road onto a side street in a business park with a wooded border. I grabbed the bottle of Adderall, the other shady, in my car, rolled down the passenger window, and tossed it as far as I could into the edge of the woods a few seconds before the cop came flying around the corner. It turns out that in addition to driving in the other lane, I also had my headlights off, not necessary, with as brightly lit as the road was. The copy figured this was going to be a slam dunk DUI. I think the thing was I was half tweaked enough to be mostly coherent. They got me out of the car, had me do sobriety tests, questioned me about where I was going and what I was doing, but weren't getting anywhere. Half the time talking to them, I could actually see ID thrown poking out of the grass in the corner of my eye. Half my mind kept busy dodging questions, and the other half kept busy doing contortions to avoid looking at the bottle without appearing to avoid looking at it. Fortunately, they don't notice, and the most damning thing they can find on me is that the inside of my nostrils are all blue from improperly snorting a blue 10 milligrams Adderall while driving, but I just keep telling them that I use a blue nasal spray. Eventually, they search the car. They can't find anything criminal, but it does turn out that my insurance had just renewed, and I hadn't put the new card in my car. In NJ, that's enough to tow your car. So they wrote my for reckless driving, driving without insurance, and a couple of other things, and impounded my car. One of the officers was nice enough to walk into a nearby motel with me to make sure they'd let me get a room. I was only 18 at the time and looked like the druggie I was. As soon as it was safe, I walked back to the business park and grabbed the pills. I spent the rest of the night popping them in the motel room and trying to calling agencies from the yellow pages. Actually, I spent about half the time trying to call agencies and half the time calling the front desk asking paranoid, crazy questions. I packed up and got out basically as soon as it was light, assuming possibly correctly that the management was going to call the cops on me. The problem at this point is that I'm 18, sleep-deprived, high as a kite, and stranded in a strange place with no cell phone, no friends, and no car. Also, the only information I have about where my car is numbered to the impound lot. I called them from payphone and got what sounded like good directions, looked at the train map, and went from there. Unfortunately, being up, idiot, instead of getting off the next town over, I ended up misreading the map and getting off in the shadiest train station on earth in downtown Newark, looking for a transfer that didn't actually exist. The actual main train station was a couple stops further. The station is completely deserted, which means it is a very bad place to be, especially given that I'm obviously spun and carrying drugs and $300 to $400 in cash, pretty much my only money in the world at that point. I walked off the platform and down a relatively empty hallway until I saw someone coming at me from the other direction. He's a blonde, thuggish-looking guy, a few years older than me. As we pass, he stops me and asks for a cigarette. A sane person would have ignored him and power walked for the exit, but I decided to roll with it on the off chance that he was selling something interesting. He uses the cigarette as a chance to start up a conversation. I tell him my situation. Cops took my car, trying to get to the impound lot, and he offers me some weed, which I'm not interested in. We keep talking, and then all of a sudden it turns out his buddy's dad is a cop who can fix tickets. There's a payphone nearby, and he walks over with me, looks at one of the tickets, and dials a number on it. He's relatively good at faking his side of the conversation, but fortunately am not naive enough to be fooled, especially when after he hangs up, he starts talking about taking me to the ATM ID. Been smart enough to work not having cash into my initial story, so he didn't realize how much I had on me. At this point, we're still alone, and he's close enough to easily yoke me before I get to the exit if I shrinned for it. I get a flash of inspiration and grab the payphone and tell him I'm going to let my folks know them on my way home. I actually do call them and drag the conversation out as long as possible, loudly telling them which station I'm at and things like that as much as possible during the course of the conversation. Would-be mugger starts to wander off, still kind of watching me though. When there's enough separation, I quickly hung up the phone and basically walked towards the exit. I made it there ahead of him, right as a shuttle bus was pulling up to a bus stop outside. There weren't a bunch of people there, but enough that he couldn't do. I got directions to the actual main Newark train station from the shuttle bus driver, got the out of there, and that was pretty much it. TLDR avoided a DUI and a mugging. Edit, please note, am not endorsing driving drunk or any of this behavior. The semi-responsible 20-something adult me would punch the 18-year-old me out if it ever got the chance.